you run meetings before? Feel comfortable doing this?
Yeah.
Okay. You got to log in as a backup? What? That's a county computer and it's acting.
Windows has blocked.
Okay, let's try adding not through the app. Let's go in through the browser. So if you want to use Chrome or you want to use Edge or you want to use Firefox.
Entered. It looks like it's working.
Okay. All right, as long as
So I have to go in and let them in. How do I go in?
Let's first pause the recording. So up here.
It's recording.
But we don't really.
Okay, it's not, the Board of Commissioners has not ranked the items. We do, however, recognize that it's up to the facilitator to direct work on those items. Any other questions? Okay. The Board of Commissioners does not want the work group.
I'm sorry, Chair. I just want to make sure we don't have an unintentional flyback here. So what I'm hearing you say, what I'm hearing you say is right now the charge says we will scope the SMMP. We're not going to do the SMMP.
Correct.
And that is an accurate summary.
Yes.
So then the question is, what's the distinction between those? You will see there's an agenda item coming up with an attachment that is suggesting this as the best analogy I can come up with in a moment. Is primarily we're going to talk about the qualifications for the person who's going to be the consultant. We're going to talk about who needs to be at the table beyond folks in Benton County. We're going to talk about creating the table of contents for doing that. And that's where that charge ends. The friendly amendment that for you to consider to bring to the board at a meeting is, what about a partial step below? So take the issues like the obviously important 2040 plan, for lack of a term, and ask the worker, do you want that in the SMMP considerations? And I think the obvious answer to that is going to be yes, of course we want that in and all our values in the system. The next layer down of using that as the basis for anything else is not within the scope of the charge. Another example that I might give you, say there's a table of contents item that says, what are the alternative mechanisms for reducing the flow of trash in landfill? We're not going down to the level of, these are the 7 we want you to consider. That is going to be left to the subsequent process that's already in place. And certainly then not the level below that is, of those 7, number 3 is the one we expect you to, we recommend you spend the most amount of money on. So we're trying to keep it at a level that, yes, recognizes, if you approve this amendment, yes, we're going to have some value statements, but those aren't going to be used to prioritize other aspects of the solid waste management. That's the new consultant, subject matter expertise, different people, same people, whatever, to be decided. So that's the clarification. And I want to make sure that's consistent first with what you hear the report saying, not the amendment, that isn't before you yet, but this distinction between scoping and actually doing.
Correct. Any questions? Okay. Next, Board of Commissioners does not want the work group to make recommendations on whether and or when the landfill should be closed, how to reduce the amount of waste that goes into the landfill, or options for the county's solid waste future. That's not to say that those topics are not important, but that is not what this group is here to work on. Questions? Okay, next. Any official communication from the work group or any Benton County appointed body should be agreed upon by the body by a majority vote and passed along by staff. Individual members do not speak for the body. Questions? Any examples or? Okay. Next, Board of Commissioners expects everyone representing Benton County to conduct themselves in a courteous manner, including communications, whether that's in person, in writing, phone calls, emails, etc. Be polite. We all have to work together on these tough issues. And lastly, in the event that a work group member cannot or will not meet expectations as determined by the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Commissioners will remove the member from the work group. In addition, if the work group member is also a liaison from a Benton County appointed body, the Board of Commissioners will consider removing the individual from the appointed body as well. Questions? Joel?
Yeah, regarding expectations, what do you think is a reasonable expectation of time that we should be putting in as volunteers for this? You know, we budgeted, we all signed up for 8 hours per month, and that was sort of understood. What do you think is a reasonable amount beyond that for us?
You know, that's not really a question that I can answer. I think some of that is going to come up to your personal, what works for you, you know, what works for the facilitator. If you find yourself in a position where, you know, this group is just not what you thought, it's way more than you thought it was going to be, it's just not the work that you wanted to do. You know, stepping down is not necessarily a bad thing. No one's going to judge anyone for doing that, because it is a lot of work, and we do recognize that.
Yeah, and then kind of a follow-up to that is what's a reasonable expectation for what we get given to look at? You know, should documents be fairly complete? Should somebody look at them before, if they come from staff or from the consultant? Should they be in good shape before we get them? We've been looking at a lot of fragmentary stuff, and that's what's been really frustrating for a lot of us.
Sure. So I have a hard time answering that because of the subjectivity. I mean, for one person, what may seem fragmented might work for another person, or what might seem very time consuming for one person might be not so much for another. So yeah, I hope that we all are trying our best. You know? Yes, Marge.
Well, the kind of spreadsheets that we've been given to comment on, in order to do anything with them, almost even to try to understand them, is really time consuming. So that kind of okay, so you can say, well, only spend the amount of time you feel comfortable with, but then is there an expectation that we actually really try to accomplish something with those documents? And then if that's the case, then at the level that we've been given information, it's really hard to do that within a reasonable amount of time. You know, if we have higher level.
Sure. So it sounds like maybe some of the formats that you are receiving information in maybe doesn't work well for you. Is that fair to say? Would it be easier if the information came in a different format?
Yeah, the format, but also the way that the information is contained in the level of information, the detail level of information.
Okay, so I think that is all good feedback for your facilitator.
So speaking to that directly, I don't remember what night's email the follow-up came in, but the topics in particular, the meatiest of the documents was to what extent, if any, have Republic complied with conditions of its prior CUP applications and conditions there too. The staff, that came up repeatedly in my assessment, and since then, staff put together a document that laid out their understanding of compliance, not compliance, and issues. You all had an opportunity to look at that. We rolled up all of your comments into one document, sent them out. And as I said, the second email for this process is that we're going to have to do subcommittees now, given our timing issues, to vet that information in the degree of, given its degree of importance and degree of nuance complexities, that subcommittee, which we're going to have an opportunity for people to volunteer to be on here when we get to that agenda item, will vet that material and bring back their findings to the group, and you can choose then based on that subcommittee's work and vetting to vote of 1 or 2 or 3 surrounding whether or not you agree with those recommendations. At the end of the day, if we don't get a consensus on the quite a large number of CUP conditions out there, it's going to be reported as a majority and minority report, and both sides of that equation, be they voted a 1 or 2 or 3, are going to be able to put in their own report to say why they agree or disagree. I suspect it's fair to say that ultimately the board is going to look to its own staff to opine on whether or not they are accurately reflecting the current state of Republic's compliance. This is an opportunity for you to say that you agree or disagree with staff. So that's the only approach we can take that I'm aware of to get through that level of detail on that important topic.
Any follow-up questions on that, please? Other questions?
Thank you so much, Chair, for coming in.
Thank you. And again, I really do appreciate everybody's time and commitment to this. It is really important work. Very much.
So the next up is just a quick review of the agenda. It's there in front of you and posted online. But we are going to do some of the ministerial tasks, like going through the draft minutes from the last meeting and the tours. We'll talk about the landfill tour questions. Have our public comment period, and then go into an additional discussion about protocols between meetings. We'll have a stretch break. We'll introduce a couple of legal topics. They're not designed to resolve them. They're designed to give you a heads up of what's coming and set the stage for standing up a legal subcommittee. We give you another check-in as to where you are overall with what the chair has said. We'll have a dinner break, and then we'll set the stage for 3 subcommittees: common understandings, SWMP, SMMP, and CUP conditions. We'll stand up those committees and move forward with them. And then we'll talk about the amended work plan that I took out through December 15th. And under the category of what I try to do for compulsive disclosure is, this is a very aggressive schedule. It was a very aggressive schedule to begin with. And given the what's happened over the first 2, now 3 meetings, you're going to have to take a look at that. And depending on how this meeting goes and what people say, I probably will be coming back with all right, here's what this could look like. What do you all think? Does this work plan make sense, or is it nonsense, or somewhere in between? Ultimately, it's the board's decision to what extent, if any, it wants to shorten, keep the same, or lengthen our period of time. And we'll do our usual closing dance number with the evaluations, homework, and next meeting. So that's the overview of the agenda. Thank you, members of the public, first for being patient, and just to get a sense of the timing here. I'll first look to members in the room to see how many folks would like to provide public comment. If you could just show your hand so I have an idea how many are in the room. So I'm not seeing anyone in the room. Let me turn to, is there a way to allow me to be able to see? That's not the computer that's doing that. There it is. Thank you. For those of you online that would like to make a public comment, if you could just raise that hand feature or raise your physical hand. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, or 3, 4. All right, so let's do the 3 minutes apiece. There's no one in the room. I'm just taking you in the order I see you on the screen. And that is Andy Sterling. So Andy, please take it away.
Yeah, hi, my name's Andy Sterling. I'll keep it short and sweet. I think there are a lot of, there's a lot of work that goes on with this group and a lot of discussion in the community about how to address the waste problem. But as it currently stands, I mean, my understanding is that the landfill is basically at capacity, if not over capacity right now, and trash is going to have to go somewhere. So I was struck by the comment of nobody wants to be the last one out of the bar, but you know, the trash has to go somewhere. So I think it's important that we find a place for it, if that's here, or if like some solution could be found before we run out of space. But I think it's important to remember that we can't keep stuffing the current landfill if we're not going to expand it. And that, you know, if we do need to expand it just to make sure that it doesn't overflow right now, you know, then that's just how it's going to have to be.
Anything else, Andy?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kristen Mitchell.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Kristen Mitchell. I'm the Executive Director of Oregon Refuse and Recycling Association, also known as ORA. ORA is a statewide trade association that represents solid waste management companies in Oregon. Those members collect and process most of Oregon's residential and commercial waste and recyclables, as well as they operate material recovery facilities, compost facilities, and many of Oregon's municipal solid waste transfer stations and landfills. Coffin Butte is a member in good standing of Oregon Refuse and Recycling Association. It's an example of the type of members we have, from very large members to the very smallest mom and pop operations that are possible still. And I want to just start by saying I'm amazed by the comprehensive review this group is working to do. It is a lot of work with a lot of different regulatory structures, and I think that's a piece of what the world is for solid waste. It is a very heavily regulated system, all the way from where you are picking up trash and recycling curbside to the point of final disposition in a state-of-the-art landfill like you have at Coffin Butte. And I think that you already have people in this room that can answer and tell you a lot about the different kinds of permitting and things that Coffin Butte goes through in order to make sure they provide safe disposal for the citizens of Benton County. So I won't go into those things, but I know you already are aware of them. They're also a major mover in our world of wanting to continue down the path of sustainability and resiliency in Oregon. We've spent a lot of time in this industry over the last 4 years working really hard through a process called the Recycling Steering Committee that the DEQ ran, that then turned into negotiations for a bill called Senate Bill 582, that then became the Pollution Prevention and Recycling Modernization Act, which is just short form name is RMA, that was passed by the Oregon legislature in 2021. And I think this group, among others, will start to see some major changes in some of the ways Oregon's waste and recycling programs occur, because we have a new component in the game, the producers, right, of materials that are going to now start participating in making sure that the materials they produce have an appropriate environmental home. And that could easily be recycling, but it may also be final disposition is best in a landfill, such as one like Coffin Butte. So,
Wrap up.
okay, I'm sorry, I don't have a timer on me, so I'm trying to do the best I can. I just want to tell you that I'm happy to offer myself as a resource, our organization as a resource, and you have a great resource there too in Benton County. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, and I'm sorry, I see your screen name is CREESE, so please introduce yourself, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Reese. I am a local restaurant owner of a couple of restaurants in Benton County, as well as the CEO of a local nonprofit. I can personally attest to Republic Services being one of the most trustworthy organizations I've ever had the pleasure of working with. I've always felt I get what I pay for. From quality service to fair rates, Republic Services, I feel, is just doing it right. In the midst of COVID and rising costs that we've had, Republic Services did not look to gouge people, understanding we were all in tight spots financially. And I can't imagine what my cost would rise to in the restaurant industry and in the nonprofit world if garbage collection services required trucks to travel further distances. This would run small businesses into the ground financially, as the cost of travel would pass to the consumer, and money is already tight for us at this point. Not to mention the carbon footprint people forget to, with trucks hauling longer distances. Republic Services, in my opinion, is doing things the right way. They have great organizational leadership. And as an organizational leader myself and a business owner, I just want to put my 2 cents in that we need to keep them in place and figure this out and keep it local. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Chuck Gilbert, you're up next. Hey, Chuck, you're up next, sir.
Thank you very much. I just want to, when the commissioner was up there, there was a lot of muffle in the audio there, so we didn't get a full breadth of what she was saying. So I just want to be careful about my protocol tonight and so forth, so we don't make a mistake on it. But I just want to say briefly that Coffin Butte is a resource, as well as the rock removal out there is a resource, and I think they're both valuable. And I think what we have to look at is make it work the equilibrium between those two to make them sustainable. And that's all I want to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jennifer Holworth.
Hi there, my name's Jennifer, and I just wanted to give a comment about Republic's composting service at Coffin Butte and how grateful I am to have that in our community. At the farmer's market, you know, you can go pick up a free bag of compost. I think it's a great product and a good way to give back to the community that I don't think you see other waste management companies doing. At least I've never seen it. I've lived a few different places. And I think that's just one of the many ways that Republic thinks about the communities that they're in. So thank you very much.
Last call for public comment online. Last call in the room. Hearing none, thank you for that. Let's then look at the approving the draft minutes from the last meeting. Any additions, corrections, or subtractions for the last meeting? Then we'll take each tour one at a time. Joel's up first.
Yeah, I sent in a whole bunch of comments to you on Monday morning, and none of these made it into the minutes. So if you want me to just, I've got it printed out here, I can just give them. Amelia,
it should be updated in the copy online. A lot of the stuff got printed like yesterday morning before we can do the update. So if you look at the draft that's on the website right now, it should reflect all of the changes.
because the ones that Sam sent out this afternoon said it was a modified, amended minutes of the work group tour, the neighborhood tour. And I couldn't see any of my changes in there.
Well, let me just make sure we're not having a flyby. The your additions this afternoon, which you previously sent, and I acknowledge that we missed. I said we're going to be posted after this meeting, and they will. So that email you sent, and I'm sorry I don't have it in front of you, 1 o'clock or something, whatever time it was. My response was, we're going to put up your suggestions to the neighborhood tour tomorrow. Now, but right now we're on the draft minutes of the last meeting.
Yeah, that was the thing, because I got other ones in the same email that didn't get in, so I'm assuming those didn't get in either. which were the draft minutes of the meeting. But I can just mention what those are.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm looking for. So the kind of the most important one, page here, oh, here we go. Yeah, reference in the last meeting. The most important substantial one was that I was quoted as under the addendum number 4, additional topics for common understandings. There's a significant understanding here. It said, it's true to me that I said we should look at rights and obligations that can be passed through a franchise to another party. What I actually said was I suggested adding a topic on rights and obligations that are vested in the current corporation, which is Republic of Clear Valley Waste versus a subsidiary, and which corporate entities retain long-term responsibility after long-term landfill closure. And the rest of them are mostly typos, misspellings, and trying to give more credit to the Carter administration, because I think it was a Cy Vance instead of Kissinger.
Okay,
Those are the substantive. The last one, that was the one.
thank you. Now, let's go first to the Republic tour. Were there any additions, subtractions, multiplications, or divisions to the Republic tour meeting notes?
Question?
Yes, sir. Ed.
You can't put all, I mean, I give you too many pages of notes. But those go in the record that's available to the public. I can refer to those later when to point out pieces of information.
Absolutely. So,
That's it.
yeah, so just to be clear, the purpose is to not go through a Joe said, Susan said, Steve said, kind of analysis. It is, those informal tours were just that, informal. They weren't formal work group deliberations, so there wasn't the need or purpose or benefit in doing that. They are skeletal, and I believe that the Republic tour notes that my staff took are more skeletal than the ones for the neighborhood tours. We had the benefit of being able to add Joel's, like I'm making this up, like 6-page document that showed where we stopped and you know what the major point to review. We also have the benefit of Ed's comments that were sent out and will be posted to the website that added additional context and made reference to, well, what questions evolved from that. We took those questions, portions of your emails, and put them in the questions for Republic and questions based on the neighborhood tour, and that's the document we're going to get to next. The short answer to your question, which apparently I wasn't capable of just now, is absolutely, you could refer to them anytime they're part of the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, any additions, subtractions, corrections to the neighborhood tour minutes? And this is the one I was referring to earlier. We missed some of his additions off that came in offline. I apologized and said that they would be made after the meeting, and Millie will do that probably tomorrow. But I want everyone else to be able to have an opportunity if they had any additions, subtractions to the neighborhood tour. Hearing none, all 3 minutes will be approved with those amendments. The next document is the landfill tour questions and neighborhood tour questions. Those are part of your packet. It is, we took all of the questions that we received from work group members and members of the public, sent them in, and Millie put them all together into one document so you could all see those particular questions that were asked. The I guess the ask is for those questions. I'll look to you, Sean. Those questions addressed to Republic. what are your thoughts, process, timelines surrounding responding to those questions for the work group?
Yeah,
And I'm not asking for the literal response.
no, I know, yeah,
Got it.
yeah, more about structure, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Consideration, so, perhaps it makes the most sense, I mean, I do think if we get into the weeds, so to speak, and all the details associated with each question, it's going to spend a lot of time of this group, and perhaps it falls into the same category as kind of like the common understanding documents to have, I don't know how, when you think about the charge and the charter, how important it is to get those answers to the questions. And if you feel like that makes sense in terms of the overall level of common understanding, perhaps it would make sense for us to have either the subcommittee respond to those questions, or certainly we could take some time to review those and provide some answers back at a future meeting.
So thinking out loud and subject to see what y'all think makes sense. My half-formed or malformed idea was that your team would put together a memo being responsive to those questions. You know, here's the question, here's our answer. It's not the expectation that, you know, you have a 50-page report to support each question going forward. Then that is a document I will send out to folks on the meetings. And then those sections of the questions and responses that are relevant to what the common understanding group thinks can then go into that document, be vetted for the full group's view. But is there a better way, different way that you all think you would like to handle the back and forth? And it'll be the same protocol for the neighborhood questions that came up. And we had a bunch of those and we're wrapped up as well. So how do you want to approach those?
Sam, can I jump in, please?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, so Ginger, introduce yourself and take it away.
Hi, the members of the work group who don't know me, I am Russ Naki's alternate, representing Republic Services. Russ is a father again as of this week, and so he was unfortunately unable to join the meeting as he is spending some much needed time with his wife and newborn son. I think, Sam, you know, we are certainly willing from Republic's standpoint to take a crack at responding to these questions. We've committed to transparency. We want to provide as much information as we absolutely can to the members of this work group. I will say that we did just get these questions in the last couple of days. As you know, the packet just came out. So it will take us some time to pull that together. But I think we would be happy if we feel like this is a good use of our time and will help facilitate us moving towards consensus in the common understandings document and the work group charges to try to get as many of these questions answered as we possibly can. Can't guarantee that we'll be able to answer all of them, but we can certainly do our best.
Any different proposal as to how to get those questions answered and responded and get out to you? So first step would they respond. Second step, that memo gets sent to all of you. Third step, you'll have an opportunity to say, you know, I need more on this, or I get it or don't get it. It goes to the subcommittee. They decide which of those things go into the common understanding documents, roll up a recommendation to all of you, and then we'll have formal polling on that. Going once, twice, sold. All right. The next topic is comments on meeting 2 evaluation, suggestions for improving between meeting comments and project email protocols. And so as you saw, poor Inga over here, who is stepping in while Daniel is in Italy eating pasta and gelato. was charged with putting together, and I think it was basically 1,600 pages of emails between our last meeting 2 and meeting 3. As I said in the transmittal last night, when I got them, is that there's no expectation that you have had time or energy to read those. However, there have been substantive communications about the work group process, about what the scope of the work group should be in those back and forth emails over the course of the last 3 weeks. Our practice, as you know, has been that we ask members to send the email to me, CC the Benton County Talks Trash website. I make sure the best I can to get those, if people accidentally forget, to upload those, and then they're all put together and you get them before the meeting. I'm concerned that if there are the same topics, or just substantive topics, it doesn't have to be the same, but just substantive topics, concerns about the process or concerns about we should do this versus that you're not getting them in time. And so that the possibility could be that the new protocol is if you have emails and things you want to share, that you send it to everyone on the email list that I sent you last night at the same time. And it's going to go to the commissioners, it's going to go to the staff, it's going to go to each other. And then you can see them in real time and weigh in real time to do it. The downside of that, obviously, is you've already rightfully said this workload is difficult and challenging. This would mean you getting, and I don't think it's going to be the same volume as last time, but this could mean you getting 1,600 pages of email in the next 3 weeks. And I'm sure all of you are saying, Sam, can you make it 3,200 pages of emails in the next 3 weeks? That would be the volume. So I'm just laying out the reality. I think you can moderate this by saying, some of the email traffic, which had to happen, was very positive, was a lot of coordination surrounding the tours. That had to happen. I'm not sure the work group needs to see if we have 3 buses versus 2 buses and how many roast beef sandwiches we're going to have, which are many, is the answer, that traffic. And so I guess my suggestion is always is to, that I'm asking you, if you want, is keep it as it is, what we're doing, roll them up the end, or we self-train ourselves that they go to everyone, except for those things like, what time is the next meeting? Do we need, how many roast beef sandwiches do we need? And those kinds of ministerial things that the work group is ultimately not going to opine on by way of the 1, 2, 3 poll. So I opened that up to discussion to see what would work best for you. And just put your cards up to get to the queue. John, I saw you first.
Yeah, I feel like for me, my email box is exploded 3 years ago and I've never caught up. So I trust the process here. I feel like there's a lot of information. I trust the facilitator's experience to lead through what would be most relevant to our next discussion for the next meeting. So I'm good with the second option you mentioned, which is as it is now.
Okay. Yes.
I mean, I didn't notice there was any of the emails until yesterday. So each meeting we've had something that said all the emails we could read in a document like you did this time? Or
Yeah, it's on the agenda. It was call out.
This time I saw it.
And in the last meeting
okay.
as well. Still probably didn't see it, but that has been and will continue to be our protocol that they were really, but with Daniel gone, and the volume, we didn't get it done until whatever o'clock I sent that stuff out last night.
Well, and I did look at them and there was a lot of things. I would prefer not to get a lot of emails about matter, but I mean, what are we, what kind of emails are people sending? Is it information about the work group? Is it?
Well, there have been comments and suggestions surrounding what the scope should or should not be, comments and suggestions of emails to the Board of Commissioners. There
Is
have
there
been
another place
substance.
right here? Shouldn't we be talking about that here or?
Well, that's the preference. I mean, that would be my preference, is that we talk about those issues when everyone's present and can explore them in real time. But that hasn't been what we've done. I've opened it up and encouraged people to have their voices heard.
Well, I think the, getting the documents.
Okay, so I'll just do it in this order because I didn't see. Pardon me?
No, they're first.
Oh, okay, so Sean, Liz.
Simply put, I agree with John. I like getting, I think I trust that you can consolidate all these emails and then give it to us all at the very end. So
Okay.
I prefer not to be.
Liz?
That's the same comment.
Okay.
I had a suggestion. There's something called listservs, and you just, as an intermediate between having to put in everybody's email address and getting them a message with lots and lots of things. So if the county could just create a listserv, there's this thing called freelist.org, or there's other services, and then people could have the option to get every individual email or a daily digest as there's been activity, and that's super convenient. That's what bird watchers do.
Great. Darren, is that something, or Greg, you're kind of the, let's start with you, Greg. Is that something that, what's it called again?
Well, there's various services. One is freelist.org, which happens to be free. Yeah, and it would save Angle a lot of work too, because that it automatically does the calculation and compresses threads and that kind of stuff.
So I don't know what the county has in place. I think we should check with our public information officer, but I think that is a good idea. I mean, if that serves your group needs, that's certainly something we could explore.
So let's put that on our to-do list, and Millie will put that reminder list and see if we can improve the timeliness and efficiency, and then allow you to decide you want minute by minute in your phone to buzz when a work group meeting comes, or get them at the end of the week, or whatever you want. Last call on that. All right, let's see here. Why don't you just take a quick 5-minute stretch break? You want to get the water, and we'll come back. We'll sit here for a bit and just take a quick stretch break for a couple minutes, and we'll get right back to it.
You can still use these. That was all the stuff that I got that email. That's what
I remember making, I made these changes.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't get
Oh, we're in that.
the county documents.
Okay.
Stuff, it's not without printing.
Okay,
But
good.
this
So you've seen
part,
this, you've seen
this
this.
part
Okay,
is
good.
updated on the website.
Okay, that's, yeah.
It's the ones from the neighborhood that you haven't done yet.
Okay,
So I'll
yeah.
do it tomorrow, I promise.
Okay, so that was, I guess that was the end of it, yeah.
You read something like 10 times and everybody starts to like autocorrect, like
Yeah.
missing letters. So.
One of them was kind of fun, posing in the landfill.
I almost kept that one,
Yeah.
just to see if people are paying attention.
That was my favorite one, hosing the landfill.
They used to hose that road. See those trucks over there. Yeah, it's supposed to go to the other. Yeah, it is. As a kid.
Yeah, I'll do that. Right, when we updated, like, so that one got posted. We used to add things.
Thirty seconds, folks. 30-second warning. 30-second warning. Policy doesn't seem to really work.
I tried.
More sensitive?
I don't know. I tried. Yeah.
Maybe we have to, I don't think we have a 2 hour.
You can actually.
Yeah, we did that the first.
So that, well, that's what we did the first meeting.
At the fairground.
Fair, well, that's, I think maybe what we have to
Yeah.
do. It's not fair to them.
This time the second owl didn't connect. So
It didn't connect.
that's the problem.
All right, folks, let's get back in. Thank you for being so prompt. Next item is discuss county council deference memo and set stage for legal subcommittee. So that document is there on your agenda. Republic has spoken to that issue as well. So what is the issue in a nutshell? We're not here to resolve the issue. We're just here again to tee this up. There has been, in the offline communications for some time, there's been a lot of conversation as to charge B. This is a charge B related issue. And the questions that have been raised, amongst the questions that have been raised are, to what extent, if any, do the courts give legal deference to, in this case, Benton County's interpretation of its own development code and terms? And there's been back and forth communication that, and I'm exaggerating for effect. Yes, they can. No, they can't. You can do it in this circumstance, but not that circumstance, what have you. So the best thought to move this forward was to get these two memos, start teeing it up, and create a legal, for lack of a better term, a legal subcommittee to come together and present a common understanding as to what the law is or is not. I sent out an email about 10 days or so ago. It included county council on the email chain. It included Republic's lawyers, and their local lawyer is here with us, Jeff Condit, Give the Rose Festival Away. Please, he was on the tour of the Republic landfill tour. And Jeff Kleinman, an attorney who's been representing some of the neighbors, to say, look, we need to get the best legal minds we can to come together and give some guidance on what those rules are. And that's going to be part of the work we do on charge B. And Jeff Kleinman hasn't had an opportunity to respond yet, so I don't know if that's something he wants to participate in. But the goal is to set up a subcommittee, probably just one meeting where we get together all the related legal issues in one place as an educational tool. It's not a court of appeals oral argument, or a law review article will reply, but it's some background education to inform folks as to the work surrounding charge B. Questions, comments, suggestions for improvement? Yeah, Louise.
So you just, if I heard right, you just named 2 lawyers. What other people would be there?
Well, if a member,
Benton County.
so Benton County's attorney, Republic's attorney, and there's an invitation out to a lawyer who's represented some of the neighbors. He hasn't disclosed who he's representing, which is, that's his prerogative, but I would invite them. And of course, if any of you want to learn how to speak in Latin and talk about these issues, you're welcome to do so. But that's the proposed next step of how we'll tee up the work for charge B. And if they can't, just like any of the other common understandings, if the lawyers don't agree, then they don't agree. And you'll have, here's what this lawyer says, here's what that lawyer said. And it's not uncommon for lawyers to have different interpretations of the law. And then similarly, because the facts are so important as well for context. So I saw Liz up and I saw Marge up.
I just needed a little clarification. I remember on the last meeting, I suggested we would do a subcommittee for the cup conditions to see, because there was a lot of discussion about that. When was this raised on the legal issue? Was that part of some of the notes that have been going back and forth?
So part of the email chain that have been going back and forth were issues surrounding to what extent, if any, should this work group take on the challenge of charge B and what the answers to some of those questions and reasonings for that were. And so one of the packet items that tease up some of that conversation is called it's an email chain that begins with Nancy Weiss's September 30th email chain. It's back and forth communications with the chair on some of those issues and some of the concerns going on. And so that it should be one hand. It looks like an email. It's towards the end of your packet and it looks just like this.
Is this, just follow up, sorry.
Yeah.
Is this gonna get us to our goal as a work group?
Is this gonna what?
Is this gonna get us to our end goal with the work group?
Well, the main reason it was brought up that I raised this issue for the subcommittee was because there were different points of view as to what could or could not be done legally, and therefore those arguments or positions were stated. So therefore, the work group shouldn't discuss all of charge or portions of charge B. So the legal issues were a basis for making the argument that we shouldn't do charge B. We have since, of course, heard from the commission pretty clearly that they want us to do charge B. So the issue of whether or not we're doing that or not is spoken to by the board. The issue then as to what goes into charge B could be informed by these issues of what are the legal parameters or goalposts for the work group making substantive recommendations in charge. So that's the chain of logic, be that groovy or not groovy. That's how this all ties together. Marge.
Okay, so this memo from the county council, which answers the question.
Yes.
How does that fit in with this?
Well, so one of the and again, this is the advantage and this is the disadvantage part of you all not receiving these emails in real time. I'm not trying to get you to change your position. Is that there has been communication from work group members that have said that not only does the planning commission not want this work group to provide recommendations to the board on quote unquote ambiguous provisions, that it may be in fact illegal to do so. And so that statement and that argument is true or not true. And so the desire then was to, well, let's find out what the card carrying land use lawyers say about that and the ability to do it. It also relates to a position taken by a member of the work group that basically is saying, unless something is literally written in the code, it will not have impact on the ability for the planning commission or the board to do something. These memos, the memo in front of you is saying that is not necessarily true. That and that the county can in fact interpret ambiguous provisions of its code. It doesn't have to have all those words in the code, and that is the imprimatur in the issue. But I'm not doing justice to that issue because it wasn't our intent to resolve that issue today. It was to alert you that it has existed in the offline communications and we're setting it up. So first I have John, then I have Joel. Oh, should I have a follow-up, please?
Still didn't answer my question, which is that we have this communication from the county council.
Yes.
Is this the entire, is he attempting to answer this entire question?
He's attempting to answer the question that the caption says about, does it say?
So are there other legal questions in here that this does not address. So this would just be part of the charge of the group, of that group.
Oh, yes, this is not, believe me, if this is all charge B needed, it would be fantastic, but it is not. And if you read Republic's memo on this, you'll see that they have complementary / different interpretation.
Where is that?
It is the exhibit
Toward the back of the package.
towards the back of the packet. It is called Republic Memo. It says section A. Let's see, is that it? It's too bad we don't have actually on your computers. You could just link to it over to the right of the agenda. But it's Republic Memo. It says section A, common understandings. Number 1, chronological history. So in last night's email, I suggested that I referred everyone to this email. It suggested that people look at section 2C, what legally can and cannot be conditions of any land use approval. And then there's another document where they talk about this ambiguity and deference proposal. So you have those materials, and that's going to go to the subcommittee to put all in one place, so you're not getting fragmented materials. But that's the state of those materials at the time we have set them up. Anything else, Marge?
Sam, clarifying question about that.
Yes.
Document. So this document that you just referred to, section A, common understanding, is that prepared by Republic?
Yes. Okay, John.
So if we take the council's opinion on this, or statement on this, it clarifies or confirms this group's charge to provide guidance to the board about what factors to consider, to emphasize or to prioritize in their interpretation of a proposal that may challenge certain code items or need certain code interpretation.
So first, there will be a recommendation. This work group will make a recommendation that certain terms that are currently in the development code should mean this, that, or the other thing. That will include some work that Greg did and got sent to you about how that's been done in the past in Benton County. It'll include Vance Crony's memo. It'll include Republic's legal memo to tee up and provide guidance to basically address the member concern that doing portions of charge B are an unnecessary task because they're not going to have any effect even if you did. And these memos are saying that, in fact, it is okay to provide answers and fill in some recommendations, which the SWAC and the Planning Commission or the board are free to say to the work group, thank you for sharing. We have our own ideas and we're going to do what we want to. That's free to say. So I have Joel, Sean, Marge.
Yeah, it just strikes me as a little weird because my brother is a land use attorney, and I know that conflict of interest is kind of an important thing that you worry about. And it seems like what you're doing here is you're getting attorneys that each have a particular interest they represent and getting them to advise the county on an issue. And then they have to go back and potentially are representing, again, their clients who have their own interests after they've already spoken on an issue. Has the county just considered getting an outside consultant, a land use attorney as an outside expert that would be free of conflict of interest?
So I think it's important to clarify, you, as in me, am simply putting forth a recommendation for the work group's consideration, as I am almost always asked to do. to see if there's a process way to get as much togetherness and common understanding as possible. There are two ways of doing that. Each has its advantages and disadvantages. One way is consistent with the way this work group was formed. You get advocates across the spectrum of interest, put them in a room, have them explore the issue, and if they can come to an agreement, then you have pretty good fidelity and accuracy of the document. If you can't do that, a follow-up facilitator technique is to say, all right, we have these three experts who have purportedly conflicts of interest, and probably in reality they do, coming up and opining, and if they can't agree and we need resolution of it, then the issue is, do we get, the guru of land use planning in Portland who has no stake in the outcome to come in and opine? If we get to that step, I'll make that recommendation to do it. But like this process is designed, we're taking the divergent points of view and seeing if we can come to that. Okay, Sean, then Marge.
Yeah, I just had a quick process question for all the subcommittees. Are those open to the public, Sam?
We're going to take, so the board, Darren and I speak, I think it's like twice a month to the board meeting to give them an update. And after the last meeting, when I suggested we have the location size subcommittee, because Paul did that great presentation, and they said, yes, we can have non-work group members participate in those subcommittee meetings. If the rest of your question is, are they going to be, Zoomed live for people to come into? I'm having a moment. Darren, I know I asked you to ask Vance for county council opinion on that. Is this would those meetings need to be noticed, subcommittee meetings need to be noticed and, put on Zoom account and that, or is it sufficient because it's a subcommittee that's working with this group? It's not a quorum of the work group members that are going to be present, that they can do their work offline, do a report and then send it back.
As I recall, Vance's guidance was that this subcommittee is smaller than the quorum of the work group. They can meet separately, kind of hash things out, and then bring back their recommendation to the work group for presentation in a public meeting, and that will satisfy public meetings as well.
Okay. Marge, you're up.
Yeah, I just wonder if you could provide for things like this before our meeting, a context. So instead of just a link to this document that we don't know how it originated, or, I mean, you said that there were back and forth emails and stuff. So there's a context within which this was written and asked to be written. And there are ties to this, to the clarifying requirements that and you're saying charge fee clarifying requirements came from public services. That's kind of another piece of information regarding legal matters. Can we have like a paragraph that just describes these are legal issues and these are the documents that.
So the short answer is yes. The long answer has been, there simply has not been enough time, given all of the 1,600 pages of communications, to be responsive to them and do that. I'm hoping that with board clarification, that there will be more time available to do what I think you deserve, which is a one paragraph kind of annotated agenda that says, this is why topic 6 on the agenda is meaningful, and here are the 5 documents to do.
Yeah.
That has been my intent. It is a good solid practice, and there just hasn't been enough hours in the day to do that. And I acknowledge that it's been difficult. Absolutely. Yes, Catherine.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say almost exactly what Marge said. I just think this, it feels like there's a real tension point around all the emails and all the materials that we're getting. And I
Right.
don't really feel like we got a great resolution on that earlier when we were talking about it. And I think having context, because I also didn't know, when I opened all of the attachments and I saw this from the county council, I was like, did I miss a conversation going on? I didn't know where it came from. So I think having context would be great.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is like a really off the wall suggestion, because I know
No,
we
no,
talked about
go.
timing, but if it feels like we're really rushed to do all this, is there not a chance that we could extend the timeline a little bit so that we can have more time between meetings to go through materials and really think about these things?
So I think in order, yes, the offline conversations were missed because they were 1,600 pages and rolled up at the end. So you didn't see the back and forth, the context, which further underlines the absolute appropriate reasons why I need to get time to be able to do that for you in set context. And third, as I said at the first meeting, that I would be surprised if we could get this done by December 15th. And that was at the first meeting I said this. Now, given what's happened and where we are now, and what I'm going to be doing, over the weekend, is trying to figure out, well, let's step back, take a time out, do it, and because a 3-week turnaround between meetings is impossible for you, and frankly, for my team, because the first week after, we're cleaning up after the meeting we just had and getting that work done. The second week, which is often not enough time, we're getting ready and working with staff to create the documents. And then we end up getting them to you, 3 days or a Sunday night or something. And then again, last night, that's an unrealistic pace, period. Yeah. And so, yeah, and I'm just suggesting that I try to put something forward for y'all to consider and then send it out and see what you think, and then we'll have to ask the board what they want to do.
Yeah, I just wondered if there'd be any interest within this group and within the board and with staff to have more time between meetings.
So Sean, Marge beat you by a half a second.
That's all
Putting
right.
up her thing. No, she beat you fair and square. You don't get to say, let her go. She gets to go.
No, I forgot what I was saying. Why don't you go and hopefully I'll.
I hear what you're saying, Catherine, and I understand that. What I'm hopeful is that this new process with these 3 subcommittees are going to allow for a more efficient operation of this group. If we respect what they're going to, the body of their work and what they come up with as facts, I think that will help us facilitate perhaps quicker and better decisions to arrive at a more collaborative approach. So I think that suggestion was a good one because we don't have enough time within, the structure, I think, of this committee, this work group rather. So I think we need to give it a shot and walk through that now because we're at our 3rd meeting and allow, the subcommittees to do their thing and come back and present what, all of the findings and the outcomes. And I think that will allow us to facilitate and understand the overall information much better than today. Because I think we're all trying to put all of, this packet of information together and different levels of understanding, and it's just really challenging. So I'm hoping that will streamline the process and allow us to, be able to move forward.
So the short answer is that's my hope too. The practical caveat is, guess who's going to be facilitating those subcommittee meetings? Moi. And so that while there will be some added value, I think it's definitely worth doing. My bandwidth, just if we do this, just got increased, or my need to get more bandwidth increased by these subcommittee meetings. And that's what I have to figure out over the weekend as to how do we do this. March,
Well, you mentioned the 1,600 emails. Did we get copies of them?
you're not going to get hard copies of them, but you have linked, they were linked in the email I sent out last night, the 3 batches of emails. I think, what were they called? Comment 1, 2, and 3 or something like that. And they're also on the website.
Okay, and then what I'm wondering is, can we designate what the larger issues are? And especially like if we're reading the emails, we know, oh, there's logistics issues, there's legal issues, there's this, there's that. And then kind of put them in categories so that we're.
So the major thrust of the email chains were issues that the board addressed on Tuesday and just here today. So a large volume of the emails that went back and forth were on those very issues that were.
On whether we were going to follow their recommendations in that?
On whether or not they were going to change the charge, and the answer was no. Whether or not that we're going to actually deal with landfill closure, all the things Nancy Weiss talked about today. There was a good chunk of those emails that dealt with that. There was also a good chunk of emails that were mechanical, which again, like I said, were necessary. But Joel and I and staff, making this up, probably had 30 emails that were necessary to pull off that tour. And so there were different categories.
And so we know that those are in the past, they're not important.
Right.
So can we kind of figure out what the important things are and just sort of zone in on the important things?
What I've learned, if the status quo continues, is that what's important to some people isn't important to the other. Some people think something needs to change or make a point. Other people do not. But I think now that we know what the charge has been reconfirmed, we can focus on the actual work and delivering work product. And in fact, you have set the stage with the homework that you have done. The homework surrounding whether or not Republicans lived up to the conditions is largely on its way to completion of that element of the common understandings document. There wasn't a broad consensus between what staff thought Republic had or had not complied with and what some of the commentators thought they had. In general, staff would say that either that they complied and some of the commentators said no, they haven't, or in some cases the staff didn't provide sufficient information from the commentator's perspective, and now staff has replied with additional information. I suspect some will think that isn't enough substantive information from staff. Therefore, the subcommittees to take this offline, to do as Sean was suggesting, a deeper dive that involves the people that A, are knowledgeable and B, have the most interest in that topic, because for some of you, that topic, is number 7 on your list of priorities versus number 2.
And it also goes to what our capabilities are. There are some people in this group that are capable of handling certain issues and some who are not.
Yeah.
And so let the people who are capable handle the ones that they. And I think that's the point of the subcommittee.
Exactly.
And I'm really anxious to hear more about it.
Yeah. And we're gonna do that right after we have dinners, get the volunteers and stand them up and figure out the details. Last call on this particular topic. All right, thank you. All right, so this is, and we already have done some of this, but this is, the check-in. You've heard at the table some of the concerns people have expressed about the process and the charge and what have you. You heard the chair summary. This is your opportunity, you know, because they were clear, they are wanting us to perform as a team in a collaborative fashion and get all 5 of those elements charged. This is the opportunities I framed it. Some objected to this framing. Are you willing to fully and collaboratively support the board's direction on the charge? Please provide, you know, your reasoning regardless of your answer. If you want to answer that, great. If you don't want to answer that, great. If you just want to use your 2 minutes to say what you want at this point, you're great. So the work is to take about 2 minutes and write down, if that would be helpful to you, you know, what comments you want to make. And then we're just going to go around the room, roughly about a minute per person. And you can answer that question, you can answer another question, you can give whatever comments you like that are process centered. And so hopefully we can, you know, close the loop on that discussion. So a couple minutes on your mark, get set, there you go. About another 30 seconds, folks. Okay. Open seating, open mic. Who would like to go first? Go ahead, Marcia.
Okay. My answer is yes, of course. And this answer is implicit in my agreement to join this work group as a SWAT representative and having read its charter. But I feel a little weird that you're asking this question. It just feels a little creepy and kind of loyalty oath-like and brings to mind the Trump crony situation, which is never a happy thought for me. So in my other comment, I would like to say that I'm concerned that Benton County's core values have not been a significant part of the background, the framework within which we are working. And I would like to spend a few minutes at the next meeting discussing that.
Thank you. Who's up next? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Just, you know, the confirmation by the board of commissioners, that this is our charter, this is what we're asked to do. We affirm everything, so, yeah.
Thank you. Who's up? Yeah, Liz?
Yes, and I think it was done well. This is the first bite, and then there's a second bite later after we're done. So we're not anticipated to solve the problem. We're just here to do our job. So it's
Who's up? Yes, Catherine?
Yes, also, and I think, I feel like the commissioners so far have made their best effort to communicate, to hear us and to communicate with us. So as long as we can keep those lines of communication open when we have questions or concerns.
Ed?
Yes, the board is dealing with a significant land use and solid waste management issue. My view is they have asked for help in getting information and community input. The board structured a process to get them the information in a format and a pace that they can use. As a resident, I'm just happy to help them in a way that is useful to them in reaching a robust decision.
Thank you. So I have John, then Joel.
I wrote something, but I'm just, Ed just said it for me.
That's copywritten. You'll have to pay a royalty.
I don't want to waste Drew's time.
Joel.
Okay, yeah, you know, there's a problem I brought up with Commissioner Weiss earlier, that as a SWAC member, I've been appointed to this, but I'm not actually being able to function as a liaison to SWAC. So I can't speak on behalf of SWAC. I can really speak for myself, and as a volunteer, I can commit up to 16 hours per month maximum to the group's collaborative efforts to meet the objectives set by the board.
Thank you. Yes, Louisa.
Well, I would say yes. And I see there's a lot of people who are really knowledgeable and experts on a lot of these topics, where there's more community members that maybe need your information, and I really appreciate that. So if you're thinking of not committing to the board, I hope you do, talk to the board, to the work group, and work together, listen. But I don't know if you listen to, probably all of you listen to the Board of Commissioners meeting, but one of the Board of Commissioners was saying that this is a long time problem and frustration, and we haven't dealt with it in the community and with the county for a long time, so it's understandable, but it is really an important topic, and I hope that.
Thank you. Who's next? Who hasn't had a chance to go?
Hey, Sam, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Ginger. She's got her hand up.
Okay, Ginger Ruff.
So weird for me to be speaking from, be virtual here, speaking from far away. But just on behalf of myself and the company, yes, when we pulled back our appeal of our original CUP application in March, we committed to engaging with the community and then subsequently with this process. And we remain committed to that. And, as part of that, we fully recognize that there are going to be differences of opinion and there are going to be disagreements. And along those lines, our municipal manager, Julie Jackson, had a very lovely conversation with Nancy Whitcomb. Really appreciate what Nancy said, which is essentially, yes, we can have different opinions, but we're all here for the same thing. We're here to try to make Benton County a better place for its residents and its businesses. And so we remain a full partner in this process and look forward to seeing it through its conclusion.
Thank you. Well, Nancy?
I would like to point out that when I said that to Julie, she did have my phone hostage.
Yeah,
And
that's powerful.
I spent about 12 hours yesterday trying to pull together some of the disparate items in the staff report and some other things that I had in files and old copies of the Gazette Times. And I signed up actually for a free 1-month subscription to newspapers.com. So that was quite a sacrifice. And I actually produced a document that I'm hoping that we might be able to use as a springboard for a document that I think Commissioner Ojero, I'm hoping actually that we could have a little bit more two-way communication between the board so that we can get to more clarity about what exactly they want, because I think that's been a little murky. I think they have an idea of what they want, and I really appreciate their clarifying it. And I just wonder if there's a mechanism whereby we might like give them part of this and they say like, you know, older or hotter, something like that. I mean, I think that would help us. That's it.
Thank you. Everyone had a chance. Brian.
As an ex-officio member for Marion County, definitely here to help support in any way possible the group and the charter that's been directed by the board.
John?
Well, the short answer is I enthusiastically enjoy this because Joe Kirby said to be here. So, but that's the longer answer. I was also in the meeting and talking about Commissioner Ojero commenting on the everywhere to have this outreach, and that was came home to me about that this is could be a fruitful opportunity for a two-way dialogue. So I really enjoyed my time.
All right. So the only thing left between you and it looks like pizza is for me to say, oh yes, great.
From the ex-officio.
That's right.
Running community development. I just want to say this is an opportunity, a unique opportunity for the community and for the county to engage in problem solving, facilitated and driven from the grassroots, given leadership by the Board of Commissioners. This is a unique opportunity, and I am really proud and glad to be able to be part of it. So, yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's be back at 5:30 on your mark. Get set. Eat. Folks, welcome back, everyone. Folks online, I'm hoping you can hear me and know that we're getting ready. I see Catherine Bisco has her hand up, so I'll give her an opportunity to comment and welcome her.
All right, Sam and everyone in the room. I was able to jump back on about 20 minutes, so I missed that one section right there. I didn't know if you wanted me to comment to reaffirm since I'm new officially to the work group, but just that reaffirmation part. Didn't know.
Yep, please, you got your minute of fame here to say what you like on that issue.
All right, my minute of fame is yes, definitely willing to support this. And I just want to say, just a perspective, sitting in first as a guest at the first meeting, sitting in as an alternate in the second meeting, and now coming into this space this is an incredibly complex issue, but I want to give kudos to everybody on this team because I've watched, I've had that opportunity to watch without the obligation of being in the group until now, officially. And I think there's a lot of experience and perspectives and skills within this group. I just want to encourage everybody that the board has actually entrusted this group to come up with the recommendations that they are asking for. It's great that they were able to reaffirm that for us, and I'm just looking forward in supporting that process. So I do think we have a really good team, and it's just been a neat opportunity to see that. No matter the differences that we keep seeing in some of our engagements and such, we still are moving forward together. So that's just my comment.
Thanks so much. And welcome to your official status as a
Thank you.
Great. So to get the county's perspective on some of the comments that were made just before we broke for dinner, I'm going to ask Darren to come up and give the county's perspective.
Okay, thank you, Sam, and thanks everybody for the good discussion. The question is raised, how to improve or continue two-way dialogue with the Board of Commissioners. I think there's two ways to think about first of all, we built in an opportunity to approach the board every time they have a public meeting. So that's basically every 2 weeks at their public meeting. And Sam and I are committed to show up there and give them a status update, ask questions, hear from them, direction, bring it back. So at a minimum, we are scheduled standing 15-minute item at every public meeting of the board. And of course, there's also an opportunity for public comment there. So if anyone has an idea, thought, question, concern, that is also the other part of this, I think, is really important, and it's part of the reason that we have a facilitator to help us is partly to have someone keep us organized and on track and moving forward. It's also to have someone in the room who doesn't have a stake in the outcome except to get us to success. And Sam has been given really broad discretion from the board to decide how we're doing, to serve as the chair of this group, to kind of keep his finger on our pulse or keep his finger on the temperature of the room. So if things are moving too quickly, he'll slow us down. I don't see that happening yet. If we're moving, at about the right pace, he's going to kind of keep moving us forward. On the other hand, if we're dragging our feet or getting bogged down, Sam has that discretion as well. And the board has been very clear that they trust Sam to keep us on track. So I just want to say that I think we have the pieces in place to meet the needs of the hear that clearly from Mr. Wise this evening. Certainly, if there's room for improvement, we want to know that from you all. If there are questions that come up here, we want to take those straight to the board and it's available opportunity. The first and third Tuesdays of each month in the morning, usually around 9:30, our slot comes up. So we have those pieces in place. And if that changes, you'll let us know. And if something changes in the board commissioner, they will let us know. And bring that back. Sam?
Thank you.
Anything
Any other questions on that topic? For him? All right, thanks for coming back. Thanks, Darren. I think you coming back promptly for dinner, and please obviously feel to get up again and get another slice or another dessert. Away we go. So the next agenda item is called Big Picture, bridge process to set stage for subsequent processes and decisions. So I think this topic is a perfect example of what I wish I had time to do for this meeting based on Marge's suggestion and that of others, which is to set the stage in an email ahead of time for this. So you're all familiar with charge elements. Charge A is creating common understandings, and there's a bunch of topics that the board looked at and added to the common understandings that they are desiring. Similarly, for the SWMP or SMMP table of contents, that is charge C, and one of the specifics of that was in fact to scope out that work. One of the tasks associated with that is creating a table of contents as a recommendation that in that subsequent process, the second bite at the apple is to summarize a commissioner comment, is to put that out there for their consideration. We'll have a discussion in a minute about the values-based piece of that when we get to a couple other agenda items. Y'all did a great job. So how did that start? Our initial conversations, y'all suggested various other jurisdictions that have done these things, and you've given them favorable reviews. One of them was Deschutes County. and I wish Daniel was here because he did this initial work, and he had two other ones that he used. And we gave you that initial homework. We put them all together in that one document, so there was a fully inclusive list of things. It basically said to you all, what other topics would you like to put into that document? You were so kind as to do that. Millie rolled all that up, and so you have an omnibus version of it that includes everyone's comments in it and color coded. And the next step for that is take it to a subcommittee and embed it further. The third on this list of big picture items is the CUP conditions. And this is the document we talked about previously, as I used as an example. That's a big one. It's a huge document, lots of detail, back and forth. Same thing, staff. That was asked for as part of the charge. The board wants that work, and to get as many facts put on the table for to jumpstart some of these other processes, and more importantly, as part of a public education and outreach campaign, so people know what is going on in that particular topic. So, Inga, are you the one that's now in charge of being able to screen share for purposes of doing it? So, if you go to the work group meeting agenda, the common understandings table of contents, or if you have the agenda up first, it may be easier than just to follow those links directly to those documents. And that way you all have it on the screen and in front of you. It's part of your packet. So it basically what Millie did is a couple rounds of this. That's inappropriate. Millie put in each member's comments and attributed a color to each member's comments in an effort to distinguish the different voices and what staff members did in the response. That list is now, I would suggest, a good solid draft of that one subtopic of our task in charge B. The other part of the exercise, which I indicated was not essential here, is to determine what each of these topics do they belong in. Section A, develop common understandings, B, CUP conditions, or C, long-term SNMP can be reserved to later. We don't need to get to that level of detail. So that's the result of your work product. I'll give you just a second to just thumb through that document, and you can see all of the great suggestions that were added to it.
I have a very quick question.
I have no problem.
These little notes, they say commented SI1.
So this is our Acrobat Pro that Millie is using. Because there's been an expression from some work group members, they don't want their name associated with every comment. They put them in under my name, Sam Imperati 1, Sam Rutherford, but I didn't really write them. They are simply a way to anonymize that person's comments in the exact thing. So in essence, Someone, whoever the color, like if you're on page 6, for example, a comment, SI4, this whole section should be restructured to give it a more logical order. Right now, it's a mess. So that isn't my comment. That was member 4, and I'm not asking anyone to identify themselves, comment that we just put there, because that's where they put the comment. Is that a fair characterization, Millie, what you did?
And what's the difference between those comments and the comments that are folded into the first column?
There is no difference other than this, other than to say, the comments that are folded into the document come from members as well. And so if you see an orange comment, let's take that same page. It says solid waste management planning, history of plan, below that alternate disposal method. That person who wrote those 2 comments and comment SI4 is the same person. Sometimes they blew it out as a comment, sometimes they, well, that was their choice. That's what they chose to do.
The person filling it out actually commented to this.
Actually added, and you correct me if I'm wrong, they actually put in their document, those two, if you will, issues, solid waste management planning, alternative disposal methodology, they put it there.
Okay.
And so Millie dutifully put it there. And that person also blew out a comment that's associated with B, landfill size and development history, and told us, in essence, to tell you that comment. So there's none of our work product. There is no Sammy Parati Institute for Conflict Management staff.
And what is the color coding then under work group recommendations?
So on the first page, page 1, it basically says we had 8 members commenting.
Okay, under work group recommendations, there's yellows and oranges and blues. Does that mean anything?
I'll have Millie answer that
So for
question.
like the color of the text box,
Yeah.
that's to make it easier to navigate the pages as you're flipping through. Each section is a color in rainbow order. So if you know that we wanted to flip to, section F, assumptions, when this is a big document to flip through, it's easier to see, oh, orange, and you're flipping through the stuff on that page. So the colors of the text boxes don't mean anything, and we can take them out if it feels confusing. It was just a navigation tool.
Okay, so then these are not work group recommendations. These are the comments that what the original. This is the only work group comments then are the ones that say commented.
No, that's not correct. So anything that's in a color other than black in the first
That
column.
is an addition. Okay, thank you. That is very important. Anything that's not black.
All right. So the bottom line is, this is your, this is the work. The charge says do X. You got an assignment to do X. You gave us some great feedback. We rolled it up and put it into one place. There is no editorial comment or substantive editing done by my team. It's then going to go either to a subcommittee to further refine, or not at this meeting, but at a subsequent meeting. If you all think it's good enough to go, we could take it right to a formal polling event with the document as it currently states, which includes everyone's recommendations for editing it. But I'm suggesting that because there's an additional potential ask here for this, that it go to a subcommittee and refine it. It's not, so comments like, this section is a mess, it should be reorganized. We didn't attend to, because it doesn't make sense to stylize the order until you agree on what is contained in the document. Then the final rounds of editing will be what's the logical flow and what have you. So we didn't make the suggestions people made. We just noted that was a suggestion for subsequent refinement as the document evolves. So any questions about the process on this? We'll stand up the subcommittees in a minute, but that would be one of the first tasks they would take on, is this document. Yeah.
This maybe head, but when you are talking about the subcommittees, can you give some recommendations of what kind of experience or like what kind of person would be?
Sure. And the short answer, though, in case I forget, is as Marge was saying a little bit ago, there's going to be people that really have expertise in subcommittee A, but not B, and they okay on C, but want to use them. It's going to be primarily self-selection. I am looking for a balance of the various interests at the table, because you can't create common understandings with only one side of the continuum of positions or interest groups there. Otherwise, we would need a subcommittee. And that's why I'm going to have to be present to help try to drive towards as many of the common understandings as we can. So let's hold that. We'll come back when we do the big picture. But let's take up the next document, so it's on everyone's screen in front of you. It's the SWMP table of contents. And it's basically the similar process was used. In fact, it's identical, isn't it? I'm sure formerly I refer to it as Amelia. It's basically the same kinds of process. Here we had 6 members that made comments, and they're color coded, so you can see, if you want to look for consistent themes, you could read all of the pink and know what member 6 had to say about all of these particular issues. And again, same thing, the comments are attributed to me only because that's a function of wanting to give you the anonymity somebody requested, and because we had to do it on with our Adobe Acrobat Pro Groovy Sub 3 program. And it's the same sort of thing. So everything you see in there, other than the base color, are suggestions from you all. And I'll give you a minute just to flip through that to get an understanding. And so as you can see from the right, the 4 columns on the right, this is the document I was intending to refer to, where Daniel shows you where these provisions came from. And you'll see the shoots which has been suggested as being a good place to look. You know, what they had to say if they have this topic in their table of contents and so forth for Lane, Marion, and Metro. But the left-hand column includes everyone's regardless of source. So yes, Lord.
So this document that we come up with regarding SMMP, will that help to serve as input for an RFP for a consultant?
Absolutely, because I think the scope of that RFP that goes out to the consultant world is we're going to say, and not purchasing for the county, but I respond to a lot of RFPs in my world. And it's going to say, one of the charges is to develop an SMMP. The preliminary draft, based upon a recommendation from the Benton County Tax Trust Work Group, as approved by Benton County Commissioners, is a table of contents that generally contains the following topics will need to be covered.
So would it be helpful to look at this document in that context?
Well, I don't think we're going to be writing the RFP. That's something that the county purchasing department tends to write it in that context. We are creating elements or building blocks for them to put into the formal RFP. So they have their own format and their own issues, and generally purchasing departments don't like outside influence on how to arrange them and what weight they get and what have you, because it gives potential tactical advantage to the people who are part of writing the process, and then they can't even bid on it if they help write the RFP. Now, are any of you going to apply to be a consultant for the? Probably not. So I think we're good. Darren, you should say more about this.
Well, I'm only gonna say just a little bit. If it helps you to think about this as an outline for RFP, I think that's okay. But what Sam said is you can't write the RFP for Benton County. We will do that. But if it helps to frame it in your own minds that way, I think that's
fine. Yeah, so there's a scope, on their scope, item B will create a solid waste management plan that covers the following topics. Here it is. So this, maybe it's an attachment, maybe they just take this list, but that is in fact what we are doing with this document, is creating a potential attachment that goes into the scope for the RFP. So that's what we're doing here. And if you just look at this, just even in a mere skim, you'll see there's a lot of agreement. I mean, this, so where I'm optimistic about what we've been able to do on both those documents so far that we have dealt with is we've done a lot of work offline, and you've had unfettered input offline to take all your good thoughts and different perspectives, not judge them at all, but just simply put them in one place for ease of review, hand it off to a subcommittee to dot i's, cross t's, rework the order, what have you. And that's this, this is how we get there from where we are today to December 15th or X 15th, whatever date that turns out to be. Yes, sir.
And I have a process question, which is some of the comments in here are self-explanatory, seem to be self-explanatory, and some are a little, if I was editing this document, I'd want to know more explanation about, for example, why the comment is removed a particular section. If this work is going to be done in subcommittee, and the person who put that comment in isn't available to the subcommittee to explain why that section should be removed, I could see it being difficult for the subcommittee to decide, well, should it be removed or not? Why should it be removed?
So
what's your thought?
a couple comments on that. I only had the opportunity to do a little bit of a deeper dive. Is for instance on page 4 of your document, section G is in Greg. ironically, says processing and recycling recommendations. The blown out comment, SI 5 says remove that. Well, the chances of the work group agreeing that we're going to remove recycling from consideration in SMWP is best described with the word none. So the subcommittee is going to be able to say, well, look, I mean, you know, it's probably they see it in another place. And some of these comments are just that. I want to remove recycling from G because I have a whole other section recommendation on recycling. That's a freestanding section. And so this subcommittee is going to be given some discretion to make it make sense and take the pulse of the whole work group. You know, another one on page 5, someone suggested, if I'm following these little arrows correctly, remove life cycle of products and materials from consideration. Well, I don't know how you could possibly do an SMMP if that wasn't on the table. So it's probably I just wanted someplace else.
Hey, Sam.
Yes, sir.
Along those lines, so we talked about a little bit of the discretion of the subcommittee. So are they also, let's say they review a particular section and they read the comments and they say, well, we made the decision it would be better displayed this way. So are they going to be allowed that opportunity to edit accordingly?
So my usual candor, I haven't gotten that far to the literal step-by-step ground rules for the subcommittees. Thinking out loud, based on, you know, having done this process in the past, it's likely that I will send the subcommittee 2 documents. One, this version with the track changes, and one, a version where everything is accepted. And then say to the subcommittee, first look at the track change version, then go to the one that's accepted and track change that. So your recommendation to the work group shows what you changed so that people don't have to go back for, did you make my change or not make my change? We're accepting everything and giving them the clear guidance by track changing that document. Does that make sense? All right, so again, great work on both of these documents. I mean, the substantive report is taking shape by this iterative process. Staff sets up something to push against. You all comment on it. Everything is rolled up and sent to you. It's given to the subcommittee. They vet it further, show how they track changes, and give it back to you for formal poll. That's the system for all this work, and that's how we get to as many people voting 1 and 2 as we can on as many topics as possible. We don't get there, we don't get there, and people can do majority and minority reports. Right, let's move to the 3rd document in this series, and this is the beast, for lack of a better term. And it is, you know, a mere 57 pages. So, same process was used. This issue was identified in the assessment. A scope task was created to perform this work. Staff was tasked with going through all of the various places these documents have been stored over the year. One suggestion for improvement was all these documents are scattered. They should be more readily accessible to everyone on the work group and everyone in the public. Staff made its first and second efforts to find all these things, upload all of these things, and put together a summary of their findings, again, in black. You all were then given the assignment to comment on it, track changes, do what you like. In this case, Inga took all of your comments that we received offline or in between meetings and smushed them together in the same format that we have been using. And so just take page 1. The first action was 1974 CP 7401. Here was the request designating Coffin Butte as a regional sanitary landfill site. And the result of what happened is Planning Commission approved, Planning Commission's decision appealed, BO's Board of Commissioners approved. And that's what it is. A member decided that was important to ask to get missing documentation. Where's the applicant's statement? Missing documentation, petition, attachment A, unknown attachment, presumptive attachment B, and BCCAC letter attachment C. So that's a request to get that information. The staff interpreted that. Again, given the time between when all the information came in from the work group till the process of rolling it up, which these roll-ups of these documents take a lot of time and a lot of attention to detail, because there's 5 to 8 people incoming, everyone's making a different suggestion. And Amelia filed a workers' comp stress claim, which I said to say, go ahead and pay, it's legitimate. I mean, I have no defense. And then to the extent it had time between when all that was done and me getting my timeline to get it out no later than Sunday night, they put in their responses. And then all the files referenced are available there on that hyperlink, and you get the very, very secure password, Benton County 1 exclamation point, which no one could possibly crack. And you can see all the underlying documents that are there. And so that's all this document is summarizing all of the homework from the people that have the opportunity and the interest and the knowledge base to do that. And so the first, X number of pages are the 1 through 7 was sort of the table of contents of all of the actions related to Coffin Butte were put together. Then starting on page 8, each of those actions, starting with the 1974 action, provided some additional information. It provided the conditions of the approval that came with CP 7401. The conditions of approval are in the left column. The status was the staff saying where it was at had time to do at that particular moment in time. And this said that on the right where it has the 1, 2, 3, it says 3 people as a preliminary matter, just to take the pulse of the group, said, yeah, we agree. 2 people, 1 person voted at 2, which means they're not going to block it, but they may want more information, or they're not fully in support. And 5 people voted at 3, which means they're not going to agree with that status. That then will be a task while all of the documents, all of these specific conditions will be looked at with this information in mind, your feedback. There'll be a special attention to the ones that don't have a consensus. Reminder, a consensus is everyone voting 1 or 2. The overwhelming majority of these conditions do not have a consensus. So that's the result. So this means that this particular subcommittee is probably going to have a lot of heavy lifting to do to see how far we can get to create a common understanding. This is not a forum to adjudicate. Is Republican compliance or not? It is a forum to include, do we have the right information there? And maybe in some places, Republic might, if it says, and again, I haven't studied this, if it said, Coffin Butte is not in compliance with this condition. Republic may say, we think we are because of A, B, C, D, and E, or no, that was superseded by the franchise agreement, so we don't need to comply. Or they could say, yeah, we agree. We haven't done X, whatever X is, and here's our plan to do. That it is designed to see if we can sort of narrow this issue and provide the public information so they can assess for themselves whether or not they agree with some of the statements that are out there that Republic has or has not been in compliance with these CUPs. But it's not a decision that has any binding effect on anybody. In other words, you're not going to take the subcommittee report and our vote to a court of law or however you do your enforcement mechanism. See Exhibit A, this proves beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty that Republic has sinned or saints. So, questions, comments about what this document does and how we're going to send it to a subcommittee and get to as many one and two answers as we can. And if it's someone votes a 3, then it's a 3. But at least we've gotten more information together. All these conditions now are in one place, and they're easier to review than going to the Benton County websites and trying to find all of the underlying information. That's the goal. Yes, sir.
I would just like to thank Member Blue.
Member Blue?
Yes. Because there's almost more blue than black in this stuff.
I couldn't hear you.
There's more blue than black in this stuff.
Yeah. Any other suggestions or comments? So I'll start the process, Nancy.
Yeah, there's a possibility that a couple of very knowledgeable land use people from the county may agree to join the subcommittee. I got my fingers crossed, as should we all.
Yeah, and I'm going to have a discussion about who they might be, if you care to share, and open it up for people online and do something more formal to staff that. So we make sure that we have all the people at the table that can give us the best information and go forward. And I know Republic, Ginger's still on the line. She sent me an email that I can read off at the appropriate time. That Republic will be on this committee as well. All right. So those are those key. Oh, sorry, you have something else?
Yeah, I'd ask the public to look in their files to see if they have any of this missing information, of which there is still quite a bit.
Yeah, I can make that request in the subcommittee, and that's that kind of level of detail can be worked on.
One of the guys who did a lot of the development for them, starting probably at least in 1983, is still in business in Salem. So I actually kind of thought about calling him. But Jeffrey Cross, I think his name is. He kind of shepherded a lot of these earlier documents in, and a lot of the times these guys had everything.
Great. All right.
Sorry.
Yes.
To that point, I just want to mention, so in the first part of this document, where it lists the individual land use decisions, a number of those, it's been noted, for example, on page 7, LU 15001 commented that most documentation is missing, the applicant statements, meeting minutes, staff reports. Those are missing, that they were not rolled up with the rest of this. They're not missing, they're in our files. Staff didn't include them at this, for this version of the document. But if that level of documentation is what the work group wants, we can certainly find that information. That's not something we need to go to an outside party. Some of the older files from the 70s, that might be an area that we, that our files are. Just wanted to clarify.
Thanks. All right, so moving to the next agenda item, the standing up of the subcommittees. So, here they are in the order. This is the land, I'm calling it for now, you guys can rename it, landfill size, capacity, longevity subcommittee. So this was the one that was created first because it was a result of Paul Neidfeld's presentation at the beginning of meeting 2. And as we discussed there, and I fully support it, is this is a key issue. This has been talked about, you know, how much capacity and, you know, and what about the quarry and what's, you know, the life cycle and, you know, when is it going to reach capacity, what have you. And I remember Ken Eklund, and I don't remember if it was meeting 1 or meeting 2, but he said something about that there were, if you look at, from his perspective, you look at the things Republic has submitted, there are 3 different dates as to when it's likely to close. And so getting as much clarification and common understanding on that is why this subcommittee was created. And let me just go through the rest and then come back and ask for volunteers and figure this out. So that's that subcommittee, is to tackle that very, very important topic and to see it getting as much together as possible. The CUP conditions subcommittee is the document, this big whole thing that we just did. And we had volunteers for that. And one of them was Nancy, the other was Joel. Joel submitted an email that he's not going to have enough bandwidth to be on that subcommittee. And so we'll come back and populate that. The law subcommittee is what I mentioned in the beginning. So this is Land Use 101, what the so-called deference memos, the rights and obligations memos, entity rights and obligations, and reporting requirements. These are all documents that staff sent out, were sent out, well, I actually sent them out, but they wrote them before meeting 1. It was part of that mammoth common understandings document. You rightfully said this document is too unwieldy and too big. So Daniel, as I recall, took each of those sections of that meeting 1 common understandings document and created separate sections so they're more digestible and combinable into subcommittee work. The law subcommittee will look at A through E, Land Use 101, deference memos, rights and obligations, entity rights and obligations, reporting requirements. Staff has already done work on that, and it will be the same subcommittee process. I'm suggesting for your consideration that we not do homework as a work group on that subcommittee, because many of you have said, not all of you, and that's why I'm raising the topic, is that we're not now, have never been, and never want to be a lawyer, and therefore we'd like to give it to people that have expertise in that area and refine those documents before they go to you for common potential homework. Because right now, it would be very difficult to piece all of these together, because I think it was Joel that said and I agree with, the disjointed nature of those 5 documents in their current form. They need to be mushed together, to use the technical legal term, and organized in a format that's more digestible and understandable for context. Then I think they'd be ready for you all to take a look at and say what's missing, what have you, and do it that way. So that's, yeah, Marty.
Who would these legal minds be?
I'm sorry.
Who would these legal minds be?
Well, I'm going to open that up for opportunities. The people, I just alluded to this in the beginning of the meeting, the people I invited to see if they were interested in doing that were, obviously we need the county attorney there. Obviously, we're going to need Republic because we can't create common understandings without the various sides. And I invited Ken Kleinsmith, who's the lawyer for some of the neighbors, to see if he wanted to participate in that process. So my goal for all of these subcommittees is that that subcommittee be balanced, that we have, if you will, in the grossest forms, at least three legs to the stool: the county, neighborhood interests, and Republic interests at the table, so that there's the potential of actually having a common understanding that means something. We only had one of those groups, then there would be no need for a subcommittee. Nancy.
Who's gonna pay Kleiman?
Excuse me?
Who's going to pay Kleiman?
That is up to the neighbors to decide if that's a task they want to do or not, or whoever's clients are. I understand, all I know is he's representing some of the neighbors. I don't know who those neighbors are. It's not my ask. But yeah, that's a decision that they would have to make if they want to participate. If there's an ask, are you suggesting or asking that should the county pay them? Is that where this is leading, or something just more broad? Who's going to pay them? I don't know. I'm sorry. What?
Lawyers don't work for free.
Well, that is a true statement. Can we all vote 1, 2, and 3 on that? I'll vote two ones. Yeah, no, it's a challenge. Absolutely, it's a challenge. But those are the, and then the potential solid waste management plan subcommittee potential amendment.
I have another.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark.
Question about it. So what form would their output for us be?
A
Would
memo.
it be a memo, like the memo we received was on a particular subject? How many subjects are there here?
Well, there are 5 major subjects. That's the A through E. Okay. How many subtopics in each of those major subjects, I was going to leave to them to organize the document or documents in the way that they think makes most sense to clearly and transparently and accessibly make the information
And
available.
when would this happen?
Well, that's the part I'm gonna have to work on over the weekend based on commitment, but over the next 2 months.
And I think it's reasonable to at least ask the family to pay. I think it's reasonable to at least ask the county to pay for an independent counsel
Well,
with particular expertise in these issues.
so I just want to make clear I'm understanding, because I am hard of hearing and I'm moving closer to be able to do this. So that was option B in the sense of saying, you know, the normal protocol in these kinds of processes is first to see if the parties can agree. And then if the issue is controversial enough and important enough and key enough that there is an agreement and the work group really can't go forward with more common understanding, then the facilitator tool or technique is to say to the group, would you like to have a truly independent, and I'm making this up, law professor type who knows this and doesn't have a dog in the fight to do it, and you know, Darren, can we have your debit card and PIN number and to pay the retainer? So that is a possibility. So please.
Okay, and I'm going to be politically incorrect here, but with the last franchise agreement, which did not favor the residents of Benton County at all, the two lawyers, our county counsel and the Republic lawyer, agreed completely.
And so this is that, so they agreed completely, if I'm tracking this, on the terms of the franchise agreement. We are not going to be discussing the terms of the franchise agreement.
Right, I'm just saying that I see that as a danger, having lived the past.
And so therefore, that was part of the motivation for me in inviting Jeff Kleinman to balance the table. Now, if the question becomes, which I guess we can have now because we're having it, is, you know, what are the advantages and disadvantages of suggesting to the county that they retain a independent land use lawyer? Now, as a memory, not how anyone can remember this, because we've covered so much turf before, one of the recommendations in my assessment and in the work group charge is that the county discuss, should the county retain an outside expert, not only a subject matter consultant for SMMPs, but a lawyer for the next CUP. So there might be some, under the advantage column of that is get him or them up to speed by working with the county now on this issue so that then they could be there going forward. So let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of doing that now and maybe not having a subcommittee. So Nancy's up first.
Yeah, so, I mean, the county is county council's client.
Correct.
One of the first principles of not being a lawyer is you don't take the advice of the other party's lawyer. You only take the advice of your own lawyer. And so I would think that if the county is going to take the advice of somebody that isn't county council, it needs to be somebody that they hire and that they trust. I don't see the point of hiring somebody that, you know, their lawyer. That's ridiculous. I mean, that the county depends on Mr. Coney's counsel. That's his job. And his decisions are going to be, legal decisions are going to be what guide the county. And that's, unfortunately, had way too much to do with lawyers in my life.
My family agrees with that. Liz.
If your concern is, Nancy, that one doesn't represent the other, we don't want to take advice from anybody else, I would think that Sam's argument still holds up, because we're not asking for the court of law, we're just asking for better understanding of land use law, right? So if we're just taking what the county thinks, we're taking what the public services attorney thinks, and we're taking maybe what a neighborhood attorney thinks, that's all we're asking. We're not asking for all of us necessarily to agree with the law is. We're just asking to take in the information to see what their interpretation of those laws are. Because it has been my experience that attorneys will differ in their opinion and interpretation of laws and in their approach to things. So we're not actually going to court here. We're just looking for some interpretation guidance so we know what we're doing. So I think Sam's idea, in my mind, is going to get us where we need to go for the purposes of this work group. That's my opinion.
Let's hear from others on what do you see as the advantages and or disadvantages with the way it's teed up, not the only way, but just the way to start the conversation is to say a work group, if we can get all three so that they balance it out, they balance each other's out, just provide information. You don't need to accept their advice clearly, They're just giving information. You are free to accept or reject what you want to. Or we don't do that. And there's a motion or a request that the county hire the lawyer that will help tee that up now. Now, that may be a lawyer just for the purposes of this work group, but think through the possibility that if you're going to hire a lawyer, it takes us time and therefore money to get up to speed on this process. And if the recommendation is to hire a lawyer to represent the county in the next CUP application, there might be some efficiencies there in getting him or them up to speed. So thoughts, Catherine. Well, I had John and then I had Catherine.
Would there be a built-in bias if it was the county's money? Hiring a lawyer, I kind of like the idea, but I'm wondering if there's a way around, trying to keep it a neutral source of funds that pays for this person.
And so where do you think those neutral source of funds would come from? I mean, I can pass the hat.
How about both the county?
Okay, but then that leaves off the neighbors. In other words, if the assumption is, and I'm not arguing with the assumption that, a lawyer is going to be responsive to the person who's paying the bill.
It's, or the nonprofit perhaps, how likely is that? I haven't been here long.
It's possible, and that's one of the ideas I was trying to pump for of a law professor, to get them to come in who not going to be representing anybody in this dance, and see if we can get one of them. Now, whether or not they want to, what's it called, an honorarium or something to do the work, we'd have to see. But that's another option. I mean, get the order here. Oh, you're okay now?
No.
Please, you're on.
I'm open to the thought of hiring a lawyer and just an external lawyer, but I also don't want to just be spending that money. I guess my question would be, who is going to ultimately be having these conversations? If it's ultimately going to come back to county council and the public's lawyer, then is it just wasting time and money to have someone else come in when the final decision is going to be made by the people who were originally in the room?
So one piece I forgot to mention is that Greg is not a lawyer. He is not a lawyer. He doesn't even play one on TV. Did a beginnings of a document on Law 101. That's just, here's our Benton County procedure of how it goes to application, when it's deemed complete, and when the clock begins and all that. And that's a document we haven't gotten to, but the basis of that has been created to start with that document. Okay, so before I want to make sure everyone who hasn't talked had a chance to talk first before we go around the room. We have Joel on the screen here. Take it away, Joel.
Am I on now?
You're on now.
Okay, yeah, I just think this is insane. Of course, you can try to get try to get opinions from the different attorneys. As someone has pointed out, it costs money. Someone has to pay for them. If there's really serious legal questions here that the county council is not equipped to answer, then the obvious thing is just to go straight to an impartial, someone who doesn't have conflicts of interest, and spend some money. The county told us they have $500,000 to spare for this issue.
Okay, thank you. Just in response to that, one of the reasons, see Camden, one of the reasons I did it is I heard in my assessment dissatisfaction with the quality of advice Vance Crony gave the county. And so that was what this idea, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with that. It was a perspective that was put on the table. And so that was part of my motivation for the suggestion that they go outside, so that we don't have, the baggage, be it appropriate or not.
Yeah, that's exactly my point, that there are better land use attorneys in Oregon. I don't want to dismiss Vance on the count, but there are people who are really experts in this type of law, and they should be consulted, who are impartial.
I'll also tell you, it's not gonna cost $500,000 to do this. Period, to give the kind of legal information that has been teed up in these questions. How much is too much is really in the eyes of the person paying the bill. So, yes.
So on this law subcommittee and the bullet points here, so land use law, and you mentioned that the county's got a very prescriptive path going forward on this. So how many of these different issues here really do need to have council take a look at? And could that be an intermediate step? Because if there are basic things, there's this prescriptive time frame, and it gets measured out that getting that clarity of that document in place, maybe it makes the issue as far as what really needs to be discussed a lot more refined instead of this 8 topics or 5 topics.
We'll get to the rest of the questions and we'll see. So, yeah.
Is it an option to have try to start the subcommittee, but also at the same time start looking into a work of someone that we could use as a non-biased?
Yeah, it can be an iterative process there.
Trying to start the process we had.
Right. Yeah, and that was sort of in my half-horn to Malcolm idea, was to start off to see if we can get the people at the table, because then if those 3 lawyers agree on something, it's more likely to be widely accepted by everyone, because everyone's interest is protected. We can't do that, and it's an important enough issue. Then you go to the independent sort of issue. So, we can send. So I don't know which one is first, so I'll let you guys.
My card's been.
Please.
And I just want to ask this, it may be absurd, but in this context, is it absurd to have a law student involved to do case studies or whatever?
So I would say it's certainly not an absurd idea, but the level of sophistication and nuance that some of these issues, as to what extent, if any,
Requires a lot of
I would, and I don't think it would have the imprimatur of same authority as someone who's a card-carrying land use junkie. Nancy.
Yeah, I think this is beyond my pay grade, and I would be interested in what Mr. Cronin's opinion was.
Mr.
Crony, County Council.
Yeah, and he's.
Because I know that, for example, the franchise agreement, I have heard that he didn't really feel that he had the expertise to negotiate that, and he brought somebody in who did. That's incorrect, but so, I'm always a fan of asking the person who knows what they want to do before I decide what they want.
So, yeah, I think there are 2 different subjects. Business contract negotiation with land use implications is one thing. A pure land use person is another thing. This is an overlap area where both are coming into both those topics are coming into play. Yes, Liz.
Quick question for clarification. We've heard the attorney saying for the county, for the Republic Service negotiations for the contract. But you said Vance, is that who?
Vance Crony is the county council.
Oh, Vance Crony, so it's the same person. And is Vance not a land use attorney?
Excuse me?
Is Vance a land use attorney?
I can't speak for him. I don't know. I mean, certainly he has been with the county for a long time and has advised the planning commission and the board on issues. I don't know how he self-identifies in his various areas of expertise. I mean, I've always found that the county council, city attorneys, and small counties have to be generalists and cover literally everything from admiralty to zoning agency, so to speak. Versus lawyers in private practice tend to focus on 1 or 2 areas of the law, and that's all they do because stuff is so darn complicated they can't keep up to speed on everything. Mark.
Yeah, I just like to point out that Republic Services will be certainly able to provide a lot of expertise in this issue. And I think we should have someone on our side, or, because this is a, not adversarial, but it's a competitive environment. There's no question about that.
So when you
So I
say,
think-
okay, I misspoke, go ahead, please finish.
Well, I just think that we should get the best qualified advice, because I think Republic Services is not going to send in a generalist. I mean, they may send in a generalist, but they will certainly have a whole army to advise that person.
Right. So my point of clarification is when you say our side, who are you referring to as
I'm
our side?
speaking of the county of Benton County and its residents.
Okay.
And as essentially the residents of Benton County.
Okay. All right. So we've got Joe Kirby joining us, and he's going to answer all the questions raised in the past 15 minutes. Joe, the possibilities are yes, no, I don't know, I'll get back to you. That's a question for staff. Anyone you want to pick between?
I like the last one.
Okay. All right, thank you for joining us. All right, so on the legal issue, I'm going to turn to Darren because this is a financial issue, and we'll have to go back to the board on this question. But what are your thoughts in the moment? Not binding, but you are under oath.
Can you restate the question?
So the question in a nutshell is, we've got this issue that involves, do we stand up a subcommittee and hope that Jeff Kleiman, who would represent the interest of the neighbors, okay, as I understand the frame of who he's representing, and as I recall, is Jeff Kleiman still here? Yeah, are you going to be the spokesmodel for Republic on this subcommittee?
Yes, that's the proposal.
Okay, and then Vance would be representing the county, because that's option A, for lack of a better. Option B is that this hire an independent attorney. This could be the law professor who we pay an honorarium to, or something to help him or them out. Or do we bring on board the lawyer that the county, if they accept my recommendation, that the county is going to hire for purposes of representing the county in the CUP. And that person could also be part of this subcommittee too, so they're not mutually exclusive options.
Thank you. So I thought I heard a hybrid in there, which was have the three lawyers that we have named begin to work on this and see how much agreement was there, how much disagreement was there, and then use that to begin to frame and decide whether to hire independent counsel, law professor, law student, somebody else to kind of opine in. And I think that's where I would suggest that we would go. So let's see where we agree as a way of narrowing the issues. And then I think we should, if we can't get to agreement on that, or if it's too complex, the counselors will know where and how to bring someone on board. We should put that forward to the board and Mr. Kirby and see how much budget to spend on that.
Okay, so we call that the Duval Amendment. And so that's, Marcia.
Okay, so then will this have no legal bearing? Is this just an exercise to kind of bring all of us up to speed? Or will this have some legal ramifications? I mean, obviously it has some, but how much? Because my argument is that a county like Benton County is no match for a multinational corporation like Republic. And our county needs to have the best representation in these important points that we can possibly have all along the line that it matters.
So let me try to clarify this. The who represents Benton County in any upcoming CUP expansion application is not the issue for this work group. That is up to you all, the various participants, to decide to play in or not. The issue that we're focusing in on here is who do we get to give us the best information available on some of the legal issues that have been raised. The key one, in addition to figure out land use 101, which I don't think we need outside anyone to do because we have Greg to do it and people can, here's the normal process we go through. That piece is done. The deference memo gets to the issue that has been raised in the offline communications about to what extent, if any, should this work group make recommendations on clarifying ambiguous provisions in the development code. The dialogue has been, no, they should not. This work group should not. The board has said, we want that information. It may well be that that issue is no longer on the table, in which case they would moot the need to do that. The other elements here, rights and obligations, entity rights and obligations and reporting requirements are things that I suspect the county and Republic could create a subcommittee and look at Vance's existing work product. So on all those three topics, Vance has done a memo that you got initially in the first meeting. It's now been dissected into more digestible chunks. Republic can look at that and they can present to you their findings. One of the things people asked about, for instance, and we got a question that wrapped up in the tour minutes is, who the hell is Republic Services? How many sub-entities they have and companies that they own? Who owns the landfill versus the quarry versus this, that, and the other thing? And what's going to happen in 30 years, X number of years? The quarry closes and then there's a leak or an environmental hazard. Who's on the hook? Do they have sufficient insurance and bonds or whatever it takes? Those are all topics people were asking about. And there was differences of opinion in the community. So the creation of common understandings, the best we can is always the caveat, to clarify those is what this is about. And so it may be that if we don't have to deal with the deference, no deference, partial deference, some issues, not all issues, if people are going ahead with charge B, in other words, then I'm not sure we need it for that element alone. Yeah, Nancy. Okay, well, this is heady stuff, and I'm explaining it as clearly as I can, and maybe someone who, by some miracle, tracked what I just said could reframe it for someone, and someone without a goatee. You can't see the goatee. Go ahead.
So I'll try.
Yeah.
I mean, it is heavy stuff. There's a lot to it. First, I wanted to go back to Marge's question, which was, is this binding legal advice or binding? Yeah.
Or set precedent.
Is this legally binding? And I think, Aaron, correct me, I think the answer is no. This is background information. It's information that the Board of Commissioners or the Planning Commission can choose to use in a subsequent land use decision or not, but it's not binding. Do you agree? Or
I think it falls into the category of legal research. I'm going to stop short of saying whether it's binding. You also asked whether it has an impact, because I don't think we know, but it will be informative.
Yes, I mean, the thing is, I misspoke when I said legally binding, because it will have an impact. it'll have an impact on how the commissioners feel about going ahead in one direction or another. And so if they receive, suboptimal legal advice and make a wrong decision, then that is not favorable to us.
Okay, did you have more to say?
Well, so let me try to summarize what I think I heard you say, Sam, which is of the 5 items under number 3, A, Land Use Law 101, we have a start on that. And document here. And as Ryan suggested, maybe, what can we start with and narrow things down? So maybe we have that started. Deference memos. I think, Sam, what you're saying is that issue seems to be decided, and the board has said we want the county we want this work group to address charge B.
Right.
So that is essentially dealt with. So A and B are at least partially or fully dealt with. That narrows the scope to C, D, and E. And yeah, and that's where I lost it.
And so that's what's left. That's what's left. And Vance has already drafted C, D, and E. And it may be, it just goes to Republic and say, as the subcommittee, do you agree? What can you work out? And you present it to the group. We're done. Nancy.
Yeah, so I want to read an email that the chair of the planning commission sent me. He says, I believe that the code language of character of the area and undue burden is intentionally vague and ambiguous. It is left this way deliberately to allow latitude of citizen volunteer committees like the planning commission to exercise judgment consistent with the current mores of the county. Therefore, any charter of the work group that de facto modifies code or whose intent is to limit that citizen committee judgment is a concern to me. Mr. Imprati impressed upon me that that was not his intent nor the intent of the work group charter. So I would just like to ask you to keep that in mind.
So just to be clear, in context of this, that is correct. We are not making a decision that's binding on SWAC or the Planning Commission or the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners made it clear that they want the answers to charge B, and that includes clarifying ambiguous decisions, listing all the documents that the planning official should consider before, in this case, he determines it complete. This includes a fix to what some members of the Planning Commission said at the last time this was up, that we didn't have all the information we needed. And on some of the topics, it wasn't in-depth enough or reliable enough or complete enough. That is this charge. That is what charge B is doing, is providing recommendations for the planning official to consider, to SWAC, the planning commission, and the board to consider. It is not binding. It couldn't possibly be. It's a work group recommendation from the jump. But it's to gather input. As Darren said last meeting, is that the whole land use system in Oregon is based on getting input from the community on what they think all this stuff is about. No one is binding the hands of the planning commission or SWAC with your recommendations. Ed?
I'm struggling. I like the wall amendment.
Yes.
I think that's, once I get that far, I keep coming up against, how do I know what I don't know? Because I don't know everything about landfills. We've got 2 attorneys that one is presumably extremely competent in that area, otherwise RSI would have retained him. The other one is a generalist who probably has pretty good skills, but maybe is missing something. I don't know how to advise them what you're missing. It's like we need a third piece, and you said go to another attorney and source. And I'm thinking maybe you need an intermediate step before you get to that third legal opinion. One is something that says, okay, these are all the bad things about landfill. These are all the bad things that people have addressed about development in Oregon. Third party attorney, when you work through all this other stuff, tell us what these emotional responses have been. Tell us which are valid, or tell us which have no place in land use decision. I'm trying to get something that truth tests the process.
Right, that's, truth testing is in fact the goal. These three topics, the rights and obligations are basically the substance of Vance's memo is his review of the franchise agreements and the conditions of approval say, here's a summary of what they say, who has rights and who has obligations on this landfill between Benton County and Republic. It is not what should be the overall scheme.
And I'm totally comfortable with that. And what I'm just reacting to is the intensity in the room about not believing what you think is good. It's the credibility of this resource. That's what I think I'm hearing. I just don't like that.
Okay, so we have Liz, and then maybe we have the author of the Duval protocols that can Liz.
So I just want to say this so I make sure I understand it. We could go forward with this hybrid plan that as we discussed, right? And that means if we don't come to an agreement, if we're not confident in the information we get and there's goals, then we can say, we're not confident in it. And this is a 3, and this is where we end it. And then we let the Board of Commissioners and planning decide what they want to do from there. I don't think it's necessarily our job to come to every conclusion.
We're not
solve every
gonna-
problem, right?
Okay.
All right, so the Duval amendment, let's say is that Greg will take the first shot at a presentation at the next meeting on what's called Land Use 101, which is the normal steps Benton County currently uses. It's not controversial. It's here's our process, okay? The deference memo doesn't need to be vetted because the board has made it clear they want answers to those questions that are outlined in the charge. Rights and obligations, entity rights and obligations and reporting requirements are primarily a function of summarizing the existing dynamics between the Republic and the county. So fairness dictates that since the county wrote them, Republic gets a chance to comment. To the extent they agree, Godspeed, we wrap that up. To the extent they don't, they don't. But at least the issues are framed and we get as much areas of agreement as possible and reserve the ones to the poor folk that are gonna have to call balls and strikes when this issue is actually at issue, which is not now. Going once, twice, any opposition, any threes?
Excellent. So what about the county? I mean, not the county, the community. You're saying the Republic and.
I am saying that they're invited. The community is invited to participate. They've had that's been an open invitation for about 10 days. And I trust Ken, when he has time, will get back to me on this and I'll report out where he's at that. And of course, he's gonna have to talk to his clients to do that. All right, so let's quickly get the volunteers lined up for the, okay, so here's what I have so far. On the landfill size capacity, we have Paul has volunteered to do that as he did at the last meeting. I got an email from Chuck Gilbert, who is volunteering to be on that. Ginger, are you still online? Looks like you're up, Sean.
Yeah, that's fine. And so we had.
No, I'm online, Sam.
Okay, so who did you
I
recommend?
just don't know where the mute button is on my computer. Sorry.
So who is going to be the Republic Subcommittee member for landfill size, capacity, longevity?
So we are recommending our engineer experts do that, and that would be Ian McNabb, who I believe was on the line for a while, and Bill Broman.
Okay. And is there any other member of the work group that wants to be? Yes. Okay, so Brian May, in fact, you sent me an email. Thank you for that.
I like that one.
And Shane.
How long is this gonna last?
Okay, well, where are you in your PERS retirement? I can make this last until your vest. Until your vest. All right, and so Shane Sanderson, is it? Correct. Shane Sanderson is going to be on that committee. The mechanics and how we're going to meet, when we're going to meet, we're going to have to take offline. So that's committee.
And probably Daniel.
But I don't know if he's
Not in the room, so we're volunteering.
Yeah, well then, absolutely, I'll punish him for vacation. So we're gonna add Daniel and let him make up for the sins of his honeymoon. By not being here to suppose. All right, the CUP conditions subcommittee. Nancy has volunteered for that. Are you still willing to participate in that group?
I'm hoping to get better people than me.
Okay, and then is it okay to mention the names of the people that you shot or?
No, not until they reply.
Okay. So Nancy has a couple leads, so for lack of a better term, and oh,
Darren is involved too.
I didn't hear you.
Darren has to go.
Yeah.
Sam Catherine. Said she's, she said to put her on.
Okay.
She left.
Okay. Catherine Bisco is volunteered to be, now that's an ask, to be on any of the committees. What? She's on 4 of them now. So Catherine Bisco, yeah. Actually, Nancy, this, you CC Benton County Talks Trash, so
Yeah.
people got it. So.
Oh, yeah, I do that all the time now.
Yeah, I understand. So those are, you'll get those people and get back to us. All right, that's that committee. The law subcommittee, we've already, county council, Republic, the offer to Ken Kleiman, and then we'll see how that goes and then make the next steps. The potential SMMP subcommittee. So do we have volunteers for that? So we have Marge. Okay, well, okay, everyone's. Okay, let's take that thing first. We've got Ginger is doing, put up your name, Ken, so I can see you. Brian.
Sam, I'm not volunteering.
Pardon me?
Sorry. I'm not volunteering. Jeff Condit is supposed to be serving on the CUP subcommittee, and so I didn't hear you call his name, and I wanted to make sure that that was reflected in the record.
Okay, so we got Jeff Condit. Is it? Yeah.
Now, are we talking about the CUP committee? Because that's what I was.
Yeah, this is all the conditions in that big, huge document.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Did I switch it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm brain dead. Oh, yes, we are now on, I'm blaming you, Ginger. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just saying I'm blaming you. We're on the solid waste.
I take it. I can take it.
Solid waste management plan. So that is, okay, Sean, Brian, John, Marge, and does Republic have someone for that committee?
Are they not? I thought that they weren't on Charter Street.
That may be an excellent point. Let me look here and see. Oh, I'm sure.
Presumably they'd be volunteers, members.
You are correct. Thank you for the good point out. The way that Republic is not on SMMP. Thank you. All right. The next subcommittee, is this, who is that SWMP? And if you could get up on the screen so people can see, and I'll get it so I can point out, is a document that has the potential amendment here. And I'm getting it's actually charge C. So it looks like this. So in essence, even before the board's direction on Tuesday, in talking with Darren and thinking about this, this is charge B, scope the necessary tasks to start it. Talking about contracting now, okay? Subjects to be covered, that's the table of contents. Who needs to be at the table? This is making recommendations that we have the right people at the table. Work plan outline with a timeline for completion. Is this, you envision this is a 3-month process, 6-month process, 9-month process, 19-year process, whatever it's going to be. And what lessons learned should be brought forward. As you can scroll to so I can see the rest, please. So it includes the development of necessary foundational common understandings. So when you saw the common understanding table of contents, that's why it says a common understanding could be in charge A, charge B, or charge C. And cost benefits, so on. It says this charge does not include completing the plan, only includes a discussion between the scope. The frequent comment that is more than valid is a possible work group amendment requesting the Board of Commissioners consideration that the subcommittee explore an additional element to what's in there. And that is, if there's time to complete the original charge and the following activities, work group create a subcommittee to provide recommendations on A, the most important topics subjects from the draft SWMP table of contents. So in other words, we agree, and I'm making this up, here are the 47 topics that should be covered. If there's time, the work group through the subcommittee can make recommendations, kind of triage them. Here are the ones absolutely must have. Here are the ones that, you only have to go down 1,000 feet. And here are the ones you got to go down to the center of the universe and really dig into. So an ability to triage the important. Brainstorm options for those topics and subjects and the reasoning both pro and con for their selection. I think it is realistic if we have to end by December 15th, there'll be time to triage the most important topics. We have to end by December 15th. I don't think we're going to get to brainstorm options with one exception. And same with the reasoning. The suggestion that we're going to make for this is at the next meeting, we take the common understanding documents and as an example of brainstorming some options for the topics, the preface of the document, the mission of the document, the goals of this document, all include Community 2040. That plan and all the other things that are in existence by definition have to be included in the solid waste management plan. We're going to have a conversation at our next meeting, and Sean and or Greg have volunteered to do this because they were the principal drivers of that process. We'll put that before you. You have now, in front, one of the homework, if you had time to read it, just a summary of here are the X number of things, not the whole meal deal, and that's going to get posted. That will be explained to you, questions or comment, and really the only operative question at this level is, do y'all want that included? as part of the driving force? And I think the answer is gonna be, well, duh, yes, absolutely, we want that included. That's why we did it. Okay, and so that's gonna be part of it. What's not part of the charge, and I don't think we're gonna have time for, is the next level down, which says, therefore, as a result of these, are they called principles or goals? What's the frame?
Core values.
These core values, therefore mean that this has to be done, or that has to be done, or this option promoted over that. That's not what we're doing. That task is left for the actual SWMB. Nancy.
I think it'd be really useful if staff could provide the SMMP members with copies of RFPs for the other proposals that resulted in the actual plans, because a lot of the times those are much more condensed and easily comprehensible and have mission statements in them that I think would be more useful to those worker members.
So let me make sure I'm tracking, because I am honestly brain dead, is go into these other plans, take those sections and roll them up as something to push against.
The RFPs.
The
that they
RFP to
use
do it.
to result in the plans. Since what the recommendations are going to result in an RFP, it seems like it makes sense to take a look at the RFP.
And scroll to the top. So that will be part of, and we get to the top, these things up here. And the work plan outline, a timeline, we can look to Power People to see what they did it. Talks covered, lessons learned from those. And so let's make sure we add to the list to get those RFPs, roll them up, summarize them, and put it forward. And that will be probably a you and or Daniel thing. Catherine, did you ask? Joel.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this group even understands the distinction between a solid waste management plan and a sustainable materials management plan. You have both acronyms in here. I think it needs to be, that's a pretty important thing that we need to understand if we go any farther on this.
I agree. As I've been told, I'm not saying it's accurate, I'm just repeating what I've been told, is that in many places, it's called the solid waste management plan. Benton County has made the wise decision to call it a sustainable materials management plan. And so therefore, the ultimate RFP will in fact be, unless somebody says something different, for an SMMP.
But does the group understand the difference?
Why don't you give a 1 minute SMM elemental PQRS?
Yeah. A solid waste management plan is just a plan. We've got trash, we need to put it somewhere. Sustainable materials plan says we have a whole cradle to grave material cycle for everything that comes through our county, and we need to look at the entire impact of that cycle on things like global climate and everything. There you go.
Perfect. And I think when y'all have time to look at the emerging tables of contents for that, you will see very clearly that the contents is in fact an SMMP. And so we're on the right track, and that clarification is helpful. Nancy.
Yeah, and there's some really new stuff that's coming down the pipe that wasn't in those previous plans, that is also important for those work groups to consider, because there is money for stuff that we don't know how it's going to be used, but there is going to be a lot of money in the Oregon Packaging Act from 2021, and actually now in the IRA that Biden just signed. I think there's going to be some real funds to do some really cool stuff, and so to some extent, this is a very important nexus.
Great addition. I'll be real quick. The amended work plan, the draft of what these meetings are going to look like is on your agenda. I won't repeat it because I would just be reading the obvious to you. That's going to be subject to further refinement, along with when we're going to have these subcommittees meet, what is the regular schedule. We're going to have to do a doodle poll to get these committees formed, and then and then doodle poll when they're gonna meet, so we're gonna have repetitive, regular meetings. And right now, if we had to stick to December 15th, it's gonna look something like you see there on the document. Final thing, the meeting evaluations. One thing that would be great if we could do, and I understand if you can't, is the deadline for the meeting evaluation. And we've changed it instead of tomorrow to Monday at 5 in hopes that that can be the deadline, because what has happened is they have come in over time, which just means Millie's life is a living hell, having to update it several times. It's already a living hell given to her employer. Okay. The homework for the next meeting will come out in the next week. Then our next seance is October 27th at 3 p.m. Go forth, do good, avoid evil. See you soon. Thank you. Yes, sir. So